Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to break down the big ideas from a book that totally changed the game for millions of people, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The whole thing is based on the real story of a boy who had two father figures, and their advice could not have been more different. So on one side, you've got the author's actual father, who he calls his poor dad. Super smart guy, had a PhD, and really believed in the traditional path. Get a great education, get a safe job. But then there's his best friend's dad, his rich dad. This guy dropped out of school after the 8th grade and became a self-made millionaire. And here's where it gets really interesting. Both of these men worked incredibly hard their whole lives, but the way their stories ended, totally different worlds. Poor dad passed away, leaving behind a pile of unpaid bills. Rich dad left an entire empire to his kids. So how does that happen? Well, it all boiled down to what they fundamentally believed about money. Poor dad, the academic, was pretty suspicious of money. He kind of saw a strong desire for wealth as a bad thing, something that leads to greed and problems. But rich dad, he came from the exact opposite angle. To him, the real problem, the thing that causes all the stress and struggle in life, wasn't having money. It was the lack of it. And this one little difference in thinking changed absolutely everything. Yeah, this disagreement wasn't just some abstract idea. It showed up in the actual words they used every single day. And those words literally shaped their realities. So whenever they wanted something that was a little pricey, Poor Dad's automatic response was always this phrase. Just a simple, final statement. Just think about what those words do to your brain. I can't afford it. It's a conclusion, right? It's a dead end. It basically gives your mind permission to just stop thinking and accept the limitation. Rich dad, on the other hand, facing the exact same problem, would never say that. He'd turn it into a question. And that right there shows you the power of mindset. A question forces your brain to get to work, to start searching for answers and solutions. One mindset is a closed door, the other is a wide open field of possibilities. This clash in thinking applied to pretty much everything. Take taxes. Poor dad saw them as a tool for good, for the wealthy, to help support everybody else. But rich dad argued that high taxes just punish the people who are creating value and jobs, while rewarding people for not producing. And this conflict didn't stop there, not by a long shot. It carried right over into the advice they gave about the biggest things in life, your education and your career. See the difference? Poor dad's advice was all about security. Become a valued employee. Rich dad's advice was about power and creation. Become an owner. It's the difference between looking for a job and creating jobs. Okay, this one might be the most powerful example of all. For poor dad, his family was an expense, almost an excuse for his financial situation. But for rich dad, his family was his ultimate motivation. One saw his kids as the reason he couldn't be rich, the other saw them as the reason he had to be. So, you've got this young kid standing at a fork in the road. He's got two men he loves and respects giving him completely different roadmaps for life. He had to make a choice. And at just 9 years old, he made a decision that pretty much set the course for the rest of his life. He decided he was going to learn about money from his rich dad. He chose to embrace this one single powerful lesson from rich dad, the one that truly separates the wealthy from, well, pretty much everyone else. Now, this isn't about being greedy or anything like that. It's a fundamental change in your whole strategy. Instead of spending your life just trading your time for a paycheck, you learn how to build or buy assets, things that put money into your pocket, whether you're actively working or not. So, in the end, the real power of this story is the idea that our financial lives aren't really determined by our education or our salary. They're determined by the beliefs we choose to adopt, the financial story we tell ourselves. And that leaves us with a really big question. Which one are you going to choose?